Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
Good morning, everyone. It's Friday, April 26th, 2024. My name is John Pieranunzi, and this is the opening swing. The opening swing is a brief game plan for active traders of the futures markets, most specifically the S&P 500, but potentially to soon add other products. Let's begin today, like we always do, discussing our news. So out of Europe overnight, there was really nothing at all. So not a whole bunch to discuss out of Europe. Today at 8:30, our big news driver is the one that we've kind of been waiting for all week, is the core PCE price index. This is a figure that gets more attention from the Fed, more attention from the Fed regarding inflation. So obviously in the environment we're in right now, that's an important number. It's at 8:30. That's our big one. We also have consumer sentiment at 10, and the Baker Hughes rig count at 1 if you're an oil trader. But that's what we got today, which is our biggest figure this week. Let's give a quick look at the daily chart, which we don't have to go over all of this because we know the drill: price discovery higher, balance, price discovery lower, and now it's looking like this area is a balance or a fight again down here. The key areas that we are attentive to on this chart, and I'll just mark them, are of course the prior month's low. We've been talking about this. This has been like our key area. Is this prior month's low that is shut off the trade? Breaking through this area, then we're looking at the 50s terrible line, 50s to 60s. That's the key area above, and below here we have our settlement and yesterday's RTH high. We are trading above our RTH levels. Right now we have our RTH high and settlement between 82 and 90. We have our key 50-50 figure, which is right here, and we have this low. Yesterday, or this week, we kind of started to examine the possibility that this could be the April low, which would make this potentially this week's low. Based on yesterday's action, this is as our weekly low looks a little bit safer of an assumption. Possibly anything could happen, but we seem to have gotten that test lower that that was rejected for higher. Keep in mind we still have the prior week's settle is open down here, so we still have that in mind. But key things to understand from this chart: we know the resistance is here, the support has showed itself to be here, and also again has showed itself to be coming into effect down here below the 50-50s. So that's what we're seeing here. Also to notice, since we put in our news low, we have put in higher highs and higher lows. So that's what we can glean from this chart. I'll pause and we'll move on to our TPO. So here's our TPO chart. The keys that we want to be aware of here: first off, understand that we're already above yesterday's RTH high, which is down here at 90.75, and we also have our settlement here. What happened is there were some earnings yesterday after the bell. Microsoft, Google, Intel, who did well, and that resulted in this squirt higher, which took out this high again. And so what that leaves us is we're currently trading above yesterday's range, pretty much in this key area. And above us we have this unauctioned area that we've been talking about, these single prints. And then the key target, if we continue, is the area as mentioned between 50s and 60s, really, this key area. And then below us we have this unauctioned. So on excursion in either direction, on the market shows the ability to trade in this area, hold and continue. 50s to 60s are the target, and alternatively we start to retrace. This is the key target below for me. These 82s and 90s prior settle to the prior high. Those are the key areas to be aware of. We also have single prints down here at 52 and single prints, just one very small area of single prints at 46.25. So if we would lose this area, then these become more interesting. So this is what we can take from our TPO chart. I'm still very attentive to this area, this initial fight. This is still a very important area to me. Let's go on to our PNF and look a little bit deeper. Okay, this is a 4x10 PNF chart, which I want to look at just to discuss a little bit of the price action in this area. I've been talking a lot about this whole region, which is really the first day that we dropped into here, roughly 80 to 20. It's not like not a very specific area. It's just this zipper region around this MCV which is just above the 5100 century region. This area is important to me because as we dropped into here, participants tried to hold and they lost. So this is an important fight area that we're trying to kind of push back through, but there's obvious selling pressure above. So this is a very key area. This zipper, as I mentioned yesterday, this was the last fight before the news happened and we flushed. And then we extended the range. But this area has become the 50% of this entire balance. It also holds the 50-50 strike. So to me, this is a pretty key sort of LIS or over underline for this balance. Although obviously it's not operating like a clean over underline because the area is getting a little bit messy. But this is a key area for me, and we tested. I was expecting it to hold yesterday, and instead we tested through it, and before we found our buyers. So we tested deeper than I expected yesterday, but the spirit of what I was expecting kind of did come through. And a lot of that was based on, since we had that news, it's been very balancy, but we've still been able to force higher prices, and we have been able to breach that prior month low, although we have not held it yet so far. But anyway, this is the bigger picture of what's going on. Usually when you see something like this kind of happen, you see one of two things often. Either you see this kind of keep making a bit more of a rounded top and then flush and continue lower to a lower test, sort of that, or you see it sort of find support a little bit higher and continue to the next test. And so I'm expecting one of those two things today. Let's go to the 8 box and get a little bit more specific about that. Okay, we're actually going to use the 1x20 rather than the 8 box just because ranges are a little bit bigger. So let's discuss our key areas. This area in green, this is pretty much actually the magnet zone for Convergent. That pretty much just overlays that. Magnet zone is around 975. And so right there, then below this, we have our RTH high and settlement right here from 82 to 90. It's a key area. And this piece of structure from yesterday on the close. With that, then we have our overnight high. And then we have our key target for the upside. So what could happen today? A lot of this will depend on the number, how the number comes out. I'm not going to handicap that. I'm not an economist. One thing you won't hear me ever do is act like an economist. It's not something that's not my specialty. I'm aware of numbers and I'm aware of what they might do, but I never try to handicap them. It's just not my thing. So anyway, but this number could affect us dramatically. So let's be aware of what could happen. All right, first we'll go over the most bullish idea, which there's a pretty good chance this could happen. What would be the most bullish idea? Well, what happened here is we pretty much squeezed off the bottom. This area was pretty well fought. This is pretty well fought, pretty reasonably well auctioned. We do have these singles like I said, at 50.52, which is around here, which could be important later, and a few more at the 46s. But overall, this area pretty well fought, and then we flushed. So this area is still not, as we mentioned, not very well auctioned. But regardless, the most bullish idea would be, rather than retesting this unauctioned area, this area is held, potentially with a number that is favorable to participants, whatever that would be. And we would see, likely pre-open, a push higher that goes through here and gets straight to this 50-50, 50-60 area. That's the most bullish idea. I had mentioned these 40s as a speed bump. That's possible, but if this number really comes out good, I think we could squeeze. It's only about 20 points. I think we could squeeze right to the key target region. That's the most bullish idea, is that squeeze to here. Briefly, if this happens, what happens if we open and we're right here? If we open right here, if we squeeze higher and we open up here on the number, then there's a few things that could happen. First off, we could get immediately responsive in a grindy kind of way and start grinding lower. If we get that, then if the bullishness is going to continue, then obviously myself and everybody else that trades the S&Ps will be looking at this prior month's low for a potential continuation, which could happen. But I think to do that, I think we're going to have to hold the prior month's low. Like if we pop higher, we open higher, and we pull back, I think we want to see us hold the prior month's low for any continuation. If we open higher and we revert and we do not hold the prior month's low, then I would expect us to potentially start grinding lower. And if we start getting into push higher and start grinding higher, again, I'm going to be mostly keying off of yesterday's high. Like I would still be somewhat open to the bullish idea if we get this test and then fail and then can revert, then I could see this continuing bullish once again for another trade higher. But if we start getting below this, we start getting below the magnet zone, then then it starts to get really, really messy. And I would not be sure if support would come in again until we get back into the settlement and RTH levels, which also could do that. But at this point, it's starting to be a trend lower, which would be, you'd really want to have a good signal to trade long. I've done webinars on how to look for longs in situations like this, or how to look for a continuation of a larger trend, i.e. larger trend, reversion, and how to trade that continuation. There's a specific way I look to trade it. If you're a Convergent member, that's available to you. It's too much to talk about now. But anyway, the big key here is this is kind of what we could see, in my opinion, if we get a push higher and we open higher. We could either open higher. If we get this opening higher, we could open higher, kind of revert, and there could be places where we could continue. I would be looking at yesterday's high. If that fails, I'd be looking at the magnet zone. And if that fails, we're probably going to be going down to here. So these are ways. This is probably the most bullish way. Let's talk about another way that's a little bit less bullish so we could see higher prices. The other way also, again, very similar. Just I'd be looking for the same areas to show support. So if the number comes out a little differently, and it's a little bit, it's a little bit more of a lukewarm response, what we might see is a bit of just that grind down happen from here into here. And then again, this would be an area where we could potentially see a setup to go higher for the overnight high. It's possible. I think that might be less likely. If we start to kind of really get back into here, we might have to go to close the gap. And that may provide something, a setup like that. So basically, again, we could have it just happen very quickly and get to the target, in which case there are various ways that we could operate from up here, or we could kind of grind lower and give a setup off of either the magnet zone area or the prior settle. These are possible. However, I do have to say, it'll be a little suspect if we start pulling back into here. We still could see the support, but also, yesterday it was kind of a similar thing. We were looking for support and it just kept going. So if this happens and you're shopping for a long, I would definitely have a price action set up that you trust. I wouldn't just I just wouldn't go at it on nothing. So those are my bullish ideas pretty much. Let's talk about bearish ideas, which are pretty much the mirror image of these ideas. Like I said, the bearish ideas, again, you could pretty much be trading the same kind of ideas, because I think that, like I said, we could easily be up to here and things could get bearish. Actually, I should go over these ones because that's essentially the mirror image. So if this gets, what are ways that this could get more aggressively bearish that I could go out that than what I went over? Okay, so one thing to watch out for would be if we get something of a test higher, likely pre-open, that just barely gets through this, and then we end up reverting lower into this magnet zone. Then what I would be watching for is if we make another attempt that does not get into that, like, kind of doesn't get to the 26s, like doesn't get to this high, and then we have a high, and then a lower high. That to me would be a signal that I need to kind of temper my long expectations, and we're likely to, in my opinion, see reversion through here, and the better move might be to look short for gap close and potentially prior settle. And then once again, obviously, things could go higher from here, but that would be sort of a signal to me, is if we sort of get a little bit of a try, but it doesn't get anywhere, then we get lower, and then another try that is unable. That would make me start thinking, okay, we're actually going to revert, and we are going to get this prior settle figure. So that's one way it could go bearish. Obviously, the other way, I kind of went over it already, is if we get some type of a push up here and the action, and we do most of the day up here, in which case, if we're up here, it could kind of grind, and then the release could come at the end of the day. That could happen, which is kind of part of a bullish scenario. Let's not discount the fact that we could also just sort of grind down to here, try to get past the magnet zone, and fall lower and start pushing into this area. I have to tell you that if we start getting into yesterday's range, I think that could be difficult initially, because if we start pushing into yesterday's range below the 82s, if we start getting it below the 82s, obviously, if it starts getting aggressively short, the areas we want to target are 50, 52, and 46. Those are our single prints. If we get below 82s, that's where we want to target. 52s and 46 quarters for singles. But however, if we get into that area, it's hard for me to see us getting below 46 quarter today. It's hard for me to see that. Definitely possible, but hard for me to see it because of the way that we sort of rejected it, and this structure. This looks pretty finished to me. So it's hard for me to see us getting below 46 quarter. Certainly possible. Okay, so let's wrap this up. So I gave some bullish ideas, the key area up here of how we could get to there. I've discussed how the magnet zone is the initial support, but the support that really we think will be important is right around prior settle. Also be aware that this support could come in, like we could get a test and rejection, and at that point this wouldn't even matter to me if it's just a test rejection right above. That to me would kind of confirm support if then we hold this and continue. What I'm talking about is if we get into this area, if we instead kind of get into this area and dip into it and then start being unable to get back over, that's what you don't want. That's not support. That's support failing. We want to see support come up, hold this, and show the ability to continue. But anyway, I'm starting to get too in the weeds. But so we have our important levels here, the magnet zone, our overnight high, up to the 50s to 60s. Below that, we're looking at the RTH high, which is 90 down to settlement. And if this is breached, then this next zone, the 70s, would be important in this structure. This whole tan area, which is from about 67 up to 82. I would expect some support in there and likely a quick rejection. If there's no quick rejection and we continue lower, the 52s are key, right ahead of the zone, and the 46s. Be aware if today is very choppy and non-directional. It could happen. If we're kind of, and what would non-directional and choppy look like? It would probably be a trade that ends up stuck in either up here or falls lower and gets stuck in sort of this area below. But if we just drop into an area on the open and we kind of are indecisive about moving out of it, I'll probably be patient today. But once again, I am incredibly over my time here. 30 minutes till PCE. But again, I want to try to be complete. I will put attention to trying to be as complete, but more brief. But anyway, I hope this helps everyone. This is essentially just what I do every day, getting ready to go into battle. So I hope that this is helping folks, or at least keeping other traders company. As always, I wish you the best day that you could have today, and I hope you find a way to improve. But really, I hope you just find a way to make another person smile, because that is just the best thing you can do on any day. So, wish you all the best of luck. I'll see you on Monday. Ciao.